We've got a great show for you today, breaking down the America First agenda versus Democrats' illegal first agenda in Congress, the anti-ICE rage in Chicago, and attempts to fracture the GOP with leaks to left-wing media. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Gateway Pundit's DC Dive. I'm Jordan Conradson. It's Thursday, October 16th, 2025, and we're on day 16 of the government shutdown, thanks to the ongoing stalemate in the Senate over a government funding bill. It's a fight that's costing Americans billions of dollars and wreaking havoc on everyone's daily lives. Was your flight delayed recently? Well, you can most likely thank the Democrats for that, seeing as though the TSA has no incentive to even show up for work. They're not even being paid. Kristi Noem made sure everyone at airports across the country knew with this public service announcement.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. It is TSA's top priority to make sure that you have the most pleasant and efficient airport experience as possible while we keep you safe. However, Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government, and because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working without pay. We will continue to do all that we can to avoid delays that will impact your travel. And our hope is that Democrats will soon recognize the importance of opening the government.
Well, that's exactly what we need, isn't it? Less safety and efficiency at airports. And if it wasn't for President Trump's funding for the Women and Children's Food Program, that would be delayed too.
Just breaking moments ago, more than $200 billion coming into the coffers in tariffs, and now we're learning where some of that money will go. The White House has just announced that the Women and Children Food Program will not be cut off while the government is shut down. Some of the money will go to make sure that that program is kept up and running, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. We will see you back here tomorrow with more.
And while the Democrats were prepared to let members of our military and their families miss out on a paycheck, Trump didn't forget about the men and women protecting our country either. He announced over the weekend that he is directing Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, to use all available funds to get our troops paid and not allowing the Democrats to, quote, hold our military and the security of our nation hostage with their dangerous shutdown. A close call indeed, and you can expect to see more of that if the Senate continues down this path. But the left will have you believe that voting to shut the government down is a noble quest to maintain affordable health care in America. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have been touting this narrative since last month.
And let me say, we're deadly serious about addressing the Republican-caused health care crisis because it's a deadly serious issue for the American people. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics closing right now. The fact that more than 20 million Americans are on the brink of experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which benefit working class Americans. And we pointed that out. I pointed that out. Working class Americans, their health care, that's what we're fighting to preserve, to defend, and to strengthen.
But none of that could be further from the truth. For starters, one of the reasons Democrats took issue with the Republicans' budget cuts is because they wanted to allocate billions of taxpayer dollars to illegal aliens' healthcare. As Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pointed out on Twitter, quote, the radical funding proposal put forward by the Democrats would result in nearly $200 billion in spending on illegal aliens and other non-citizens over the next decade. So regardless of what they're telling you, they're not fighting for your healthcare. They're fighting for third world aliens' healthcare on your dime. But that's not even the real reason they shut the government down. It's really just about going against Donald Trump at whatever cost. If dissing President Trump means putting Americans last, then so be it. That's the Democratic Party's agenda. Hakeem Jeffries even admitted this himself when the mainstream media called him out for hypocrisy.
This is what you said at the time about that particular shutdown. Here it is.
We are willing to take what Senate Republicans have done in order to reopen the government so that we no longer are holding 800,000 federal workers hostage.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing right now. Hundreds of thousands of workers are being held hostage. What's changed from then to now?
Well, actually, Donald Trump is the president. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They could reopen the government if they chose to. The reality
Well,
is...
they would have to change the rules to be
Well, that's
fair.
correct.
Well, at least he's being honest, sort of. The Senate needs 60 votes to pass the bill and reopen the government, meaning only a small number of Democrats are needed. But they're united in their hatred for Trump, nothing more. After all, if they really cared about Americans, they wouldn't be shutting the government down to begin with. They would be at the negotiating table, as J.D. Vance pointed out.
This isn't a deal making. This isn't a negotiation. This is hostage taking. The Chuck Schumer has not said to us, this is what we need. He said that unless you give us what we need, we're going to shut down the government. That is a totally different thing. If Chuck Schumer wants to come into the Oval Office or come to my house, he is welcome to talk about how to fix health care policy for Americans. Of course, we want to lower insurance premiums. We want to make sure that the skyrocketing health care costs of the Biden administration start to level off and hopefully come down. That's one conversation. But you don't come into the Oval Office and say, unless you, the President of the United States, give us everything that I want, I'm going to shut down the government. I'm going to deny low-income women and children their food benefits. I'm not going to pay the troops. That is what Chuck Schumer has put us in the situation of doing. We don't negotiate with a person who has taken the entire federal government hostage over a health care policy dispute. And I think that basic principle, you saw Barack Obama say this to Ted Cruz and a number of Republicans. We want to talk about health care policy, but we're not going to shut down the government over this. That's all that Donald Trump is now saying to Chuck Schumer and the far left Democrats. We are not going to negotiate over opening the government. We'll negotiate on health care policy, but only once you do your job and open up the people's government.
The vice president's right. Democrats are using you, the American taxpayer, as political leverage to jam their agenda through. It's absolutely disgusting knowing that these are the people we pay to represent us, and they're deliberately going against our interests. We are the collateral damage. We are the hostages. And what's worse, it's driven by no other reason than their personal hatred for the president, a man they've been attempting to take out for years. It's a betrayal of the American people, fueled by rage with no end in sight. Well, at least not until planes fall out of the sky, apparently. Yes, that's literally what one senior Democrat aide said. They won't end this government shutdown until, quote, planes are falling out of the sky, according to CNN. Let that sink in. This is not a simple disagreement, and this is not a serious party or a serious political movement. If it's not clear to you by now, make no mistake, the Democratic Party is a terrorist organization using fear and intimidation to advance their political aims. Making planes fall out of the sky sounds like a terroristic threat, but what else would you expect from a political party that's led by a man named Hussein? And terrorism is exactly what we're seeing play out in cities like Chicago, where liberals are using violence and attacking federal agents, all to aid foreign invaders on American soil. We'll be talking about that and much more coming up after a message from our sponsor, District Copper. Now, when we talk about national security today, it's not just about defense systems or military strength. It's also about the resources that power the nation. Copper, a simple metal, is now a cornerstone of the U.S. infrastructure, clean energy, and advanced technology. Recent global events have exposed a serious vulnerability. The U.S. is heavily dependent on foreign sources for critical metals. Copper prices have surged, and import restrictions have made the stakes clear. Domestic supply is now a matter of national security. With copper hitting 16-month highs, global supply chains under pressure, and the looming potential closure of one of the world's largest copper mines in Indonesia, the urgency for stable domestic production has never been greater. That's where District Copper Corp comes in. By securing a U.S. market listing, the company is signaling a vision that goes beyond exploration. It's about positioning domestic resources to meet America's growing needs. District Copper's projects sit in resource-rich regions, giving the company a solid foundation. With its U.S. listing and bold vision, expansion into key states could be next, putting District Copper in a position to strengthen critical supply chains vital to national stability. Copper is everywhere in the power grids that keep cities running, in advanced electronics, and in defense systems and weaponry. Every surge in demand underscores the need for a secure domestic supply. District Copper isn't just mining, they're helping the U.S. reduce dependence on foreign metals, strengthen security and infrastructure in a time of global uncertainty. With the rising demand, strategic products, a U.S. listing, and broad industry support for domestic copper, along with the Trump administration's focus on critical metals, District Copper could be positioned at the center of a national priority, securing the metals that power America's future. And while the company's current footprint is already significant, we suspect further U.S. expansion could be on the horizon. With strategic positioning, rising demand, and national interest in domestic critical metals, District Copper is a company that we'll be keeping a close eye on as developments unfold. If you want to learn more about this strategically positioned company, check out the link in the description. Go to districtcoppercorp.com today. Again, that's districtcoppercorp.com. And a special thanks to District Copper for making today's video possible. And welcome back. If you've been paying attention at all, you know that major cities in America are a mess right now because of Democrat leadership, or lack thereof, really. Illegals are committing crimes, and the Democratic Party is more interested in letting them take over American cities than protecting their own citizens. Fox News reported on an attack on ICE and Border Patrol in Chicago on Tuesday. Quote, 2 illegal migrants were taken into custody on Tuesday after crashing their vehicle into a Border Patrol vehicle in Chicago during an immigration enforcement operation, leading to a clash with protesters, according to the Department of Homeland Security. You know, this comes after a convoy of roughly 10 vehicles crashed into ICE officers in what the DHS was describing as a coordinated assault. But instead of helping these ICE officers and Border Patrol officers, Chicago officials gave their police a stand-down order. That's because this is the Democratic Party. It's a terrorist organization with extremist members and leaders. They don't care about the safety of Americans or law enforcement. President Trump and Kristi Noem rightfully suggested that such a deliberate act of hostility warrants jail time for Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Watch.
That's too bad. Go ahead.
Well, just to clarify, you said you might go to Gaza, and then the second question I had earlier today, you said the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois should be jailed. Have you asked the Justice Department to look at possible charges?
No, I've seen the law, and when you have a group of people where the police call off the safety for ICE officials, I've understood that, and I've read it today in numerous journals, that's illegal. What they did is I guess it was ICE, Kristi, right? They were under threat, and the police were helping beautifully, and it was fine. And then all of a sudden, a woman was on the line saying, "Everybody, move back, get out." And they were given an order by the second person in the police department, and the governor knew about it, the mayor knew about it. I understand that's a criminal offense. Do you want to comment on that, Kristi?
Yes, sir, we're seeing that kind of pattern happen with local law enforcement and state law enforcement, not just in Illinois, but also out in Oregon, too. In fact, in Portland, I was there yesterday, but some of the ICE officers were telling me that as they drove by the rioters that were saying, "Kill ICE agents, Molotov cocktails, melt ICE," that the Portland police were cheering them on and had their fists in the air cheering on the rioters that were threatening their lives. So in Chicago, we had a 10-car caravan trail our ICE officials and pin them down. And those ICE officials, to get out of their vehicles, a woman tried to ram them and run them over, and shots were fired to get them to safety. So it's happening on a regular basis, and any elected official that allows this to happen and gives cover to those kind of individuals who are perpetuating murder should absolutely be prosecuted, in my opinion. Mr. President.
But despite these threats and strong words, until we see this level of action, violent leftists will continue to riot against ICE and stoke fear into normal people in these Democrat-led states and cities. Instead of cooperating with the president and allowing the federal government to come in, clean up the city, and enforce immigration law, the Democratic leadership will continue to incite these violent mobs and protect illegal aliens. In fact, last week, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order to declare Chicago an ICE-free zone, basically prohibiting ICE from coming into the city and enforcing federal law. Check this out.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids.
It's a blatant violation of 8 U.S. Code 1324, to be more specific, which makes it a crime to conceal, harbor, or shield illegal aliens from detection, which is exactly what the point of this policy is. Prosecuting this crime is a move that really takes political guts. I've had conversations with, both privately and publicly, actually, with top administration officials who have told me that they're very well in violation of this law and could be prosecuted. Actually, I asked Stephen Miller about it back in April, and he said, quote, "Sanctuary cities are engaged in multiple criminal violations: harboring, smuggling, inducing, obstructing justice, obstructing official proceedings, and many other crimes." He further described it as a, quote, systemic criminal violation. Then, in August, he doubled down, saying they now face criminal charges after warning from the Department of Justice. Watch.
White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Homeland Security Advisor to the President, Stephen Miller. So I can sum up the Democrats this way, and we'll culminate this with the Mariachi ban. They lied for 4 years about the border being closed and secure. They never picked up a phone and called any of the family members that we know of. We know Biden and Harris and Mayorkas didn't. We know the Democrats wouldn't stand at a joint session speech of President Trump for Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungary's family. And they're the party of Abrego Garcia and Mariachi bands. What should now happen to these mayors and these governors?
The Democrat Party is an extremist organization, Sean. It's not a political party in any normal sense of the word. A political party represents Americans. It represents law-abiding citizens. All you see all day long are crazy Democrats screeching on TV on behalf of foreign terrorists, hardened criminals, and violent illegal aliens. A political party exclusively dedicated to protecting terrorists, criminals, gangbangers, and murderers. That's what they become. These sanctuary city mayors, DOJ's been very clear. They had a deadline and they violated it. They had a deadline to comply with federal law and hand over the criminal illegal aliens in their custody, the child rapists, the child predators, the drug traffickers, the human traffickers. The sanctuary cities, like Boston, refused to turn over these menacing threats to public safety. And so now they face not only revocation of funds, not only the loss of taxpayer support, but also potential criminal charges for harboring and smuggling. This is as real as it gets, Sean. The Department of Justice laid out to these mayors how they were breaking our laws, and they refuse to change their policy, and Attorney General Bondi is going to see this thing through to the end.
Well, see, that's exactly what I've been saying. They're an extremist or a terrorist organization. But the thing is, that Fox interview was 2 months ago now, and the Democrats have only gotten bolder in their fight to protect criminal illegal aliens from ICE. Joining me now is going to be Real America's Voice correspondent and host of Law and Border, Ben Bergquam. He's on the ground in Chicago. And, typically he would be at the border or even in some of the most dangerous areas of the world, like the Darien Gap. But these days, with Trump stopping the flow of illegal immigration into the country, actually by 100%, Ben Bergquam is going to the worst places in the country, including Chicago, Illinois, where he's preaching DEI, deport every illegal, that is. Welcome, Ben. What's the situation in Chicago right now? I know you were with ICE this morning.
Yeah, brother. I got my best friend Darius here. We got a lot of other people out here. Just some wholesome, amazing Americans.
We're having a little audio issue.
Look at this tranny holding arms with you.
What's up? What's up? Hey, don't touch. Don't touch. We're not touching. Okay, it's okay. Yeah, no touching. Can you hear me now, Jordan?
Hang on a sec, Ben. Hey, Ben.
What's up, brother?
What is the situation on the ground in Chicago right now? I know you were with ICE this morning. Where are you? You're with Darius, I think that is, from Twitter. That's good.
And we're down yesterday because of an activist judge that said basically it was an unjust fence. So you have some protesters out here It's mostly peaceful. It's mostly peaceful so far today. But I was with ICE this morning. We rode for about 6 hours, caught 10 illegals from all over the world. We had some from Kyrgyzstan, from Guatemala, from Mexico. And ICE is still doing its job. The crazy thing, Jordan, is the reason that ICE is actually going into the communities like they're doing is because, in particular, this is a sanctuary jurisdiction that doesn't allow ICE to go into the jails to pick up the illegals while they're in jail. And so ICE has to go back out into the community. So the irony is that you've got all these people protesting ICE going into the community. But the reason ICE is having to go into the community after so many of these criminal illegals is because of the sanctuary jurisdiction Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson have initiated here. So in reality, you have to thank Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson for ICE being in your community.
That's right. And it's what I was just saying. You know, it is a violation of federal law for these leaders to be harboring.
Gotta quit watching
goodness. Well, thank you, Darius. Thank you.
Yeah,
It is a criminal violation for these sanctuary state and city leaders to be violating federal law and harboring illegal aliens. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is a federal supremacy issue. I hope it gets adjudicated up to the Supreme Court. It's just like we had under Joe Biden, where they attacked Texas for actually securing their border. They said it was a federal issue, and I tend to agree with them. Immigration is a federal issue. The problem now is you have sanctuary states like Massachusetts, like Oregon, like California, like Illinois, that are protecting illegal aliens and are obstructing federal officers. I think, first off, they should be defunded. Any federal dollars that are coming to this state should be removed from the state or any jurisdiction where they're protecting illegals. But you're absolutely right. This is direct obstruction, and anyone who's participating in that should be prosecuted.
Yeah, it's terrible. You know, we're really not going to see anything change until we get some prosecutions. So hopefully that is on the horizon. You mentioned that you're out there for the protest. Have you seen any? There we go, Darius. Thank you. There we go. Ben, have you seen any violence towards ICE while you've been there? I know you got there yesterday, but
I haven't seen any towards ICE. I mean, they're saying some terrible things. I've been threatened a couple of times, but I haven't personally seen ICE since I got here last night. I had violence since I got here last night. But I just came from Portland, and I saw violence there every single day. And they're calling for violence every day out here against ICE. They're calling for doxing ICE. They're calling for going after their families. It's the same rhetoric that unfortunately you see all across the country.
But that man who tried to beat your ass yesterday.
Aside from that, it seems like actually in Chicago there's been a lot of support for ICE, some rallies in favor of ICE. Tell us about that.
Yeah. No, I was actually out at one yesterday celebrating the memory of Charlie Kirk and his birthday. And there were thousands of patriots in Illinois. It's just like California. There are thousands of patriots across this country that love their states. But unfortunately, places like Chicago have been controlled by corruption since the mafia ran this place. And now, unfortunately, it's the attorneys guilds and the left that are the mafia of today. And, the amount of voter fraud and corruption you have here, it's hard to overcome that. But there are a lot of patriots. Once you get outside of Cook County, most of Illinois is red. It's just the liberally run cities that destroy it for everybody else.
And speaking of the corruption, you mentioned the mafia. I know you believe that these leaders in Chicago and of course JB Pritzker, they are bought off by the cartel. That's why they show for them so much. Talk about that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, look, this is the big thing. Like, I just came up from Culiacan, Sinaloa, and I was down there interviewing the reporters on the ground, and the message they told me is the same message I have here, that until we start arresting politicians, none of this is going to change. The same corruption you see in Mexico, we've seen it here in America. The cartels are in almost every city in America, and unfortunately, there are many politicians who swore an oath to this nation who are beholden to foreign actors. Some of those cartels, some of those foreign adversaries like the CCP. That's why it's incredibly important that Pam Bondi, that Kash Patel, that Bongino, that they go after this, they follow the money, and they actually prosecute these traitorous enemies within our own government. No doubt about it, the cartel is paying off politicians in America.
Ben, I agree with you. It's really disgusting. I'm hoping to finally see some arrests for these violations of federal law, because that's exactly what they're doing. Ben, that's all the time we have left. I want to say God bless you to Darius. God bless
you,
Ice.
Jordan says, God bless you, Darius.
And Ben Bergquam, God bless you. Stay safe out there.
Love you, brother. God bless you, man.
All right. See ya. Coming up next, FBI Director Kash Patel and President Trump held a presser announcing the results of their nationwide summer crime crackdown. But first, we have another message from our great sponsor, Blackout Coffee. I'm thrilled to announce my enthusiastic endorsement of Blackout Coffee, a company that embodies the heart of American values. This family-owned business began 7 years ago in a humble garage, and today they've earned over 32,000 five-star reviews for their premium bold coffee. Blackout Coffee isn't just about exceptional taste, they're staunch supporters of the Second Amendment, standing firm for our freedoms. Let me share my personal take. I've sampled their coffee, and it's outstanding, rich, smooth, and crafted by good people who share our commitment to what makes this nation great. It's my go-to brew to fuel the day. If you're ready to support a company that delivers quality and principle, visit blackoutcoffee.com/rift and use code RIFT for 20% off your first order. That's blackoutcoffee.com/rift. Join me in choosing coffee that stands for something. Get yours today. All right, back to the news. President Trump and Kash Patel held a presser on Wednesday where they announced the results of the initiative that President Trump has dubbed Operation Summer Heat. The task forces and operations in Washington, D.C., as well as Memphis, Tennessee, yielded extraordinary results. President Trump also told reporters that it was an initiative to fight crime in all 50 states. He said that they were working on it quietly, kind of behind the scenes with the FBI all across the nation, but they didn't really announce it, all but for these two cities, Washington, D.C. and Memphis. As you know, President Trump announced earlier this month the Memphis Safe Task Force, where they're cracking down on violent crime in Memphis, Tennessee. So the president mentioned that over 23,000 violent criminals, more than double the arrests last year, were made. And they severely disrupted over 170 criminal enterprises and gangs through this operation. Kash Patel, he lauded the president's leadership over just 7 months alone as enough to make a historic 4-year presidency. They had a 30% increase in the number of missing children found, a 10% increase in arrests for violent crimes against children, and a 200% increase in gang arrests. And that's just this year to date. Obviously, there's more to come with the president's initiatives to take care of crime across America. Fentanyl seizures, a big deal during the Biden administration, one of the leading causes of death for young Americans. They seized 1,900 kilograms, which Kash Patel announced was enough to kill 127 million Americans. Additionally, 4 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives, who were on the run for years, were captured in just the last 7 months under President Trump. In Joe Biden's 4 years in office, he only caught 4. So already Trump is moving 4 or 5 times faster than Joe Biden was. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the situation that Politico is capitalizing on. Leaked group messages between young Republicans. But first, I want to remind you about District Copper. National security today extends beyond military power to include vital resources like copper, crucial for U.S. infrastructure, renewable energy, and cutting-edge technology. U.S. relies heavily on imported copper, but with prices hitting 16-month peaks, global supply chain disruptions, and the possible shutdown of a major Indonesian mine, securing domestic production has become a national security imperative. District Copper Corp is stepping up to meet this need. Listed on the U.S. Stock Exchange as CAXPF and on the Toronto Stock Exchange as DCOP, the company leverages its projects in resource-abundant areas to bolster U.S. supply chains and reduce dependence on foreign metals. Copper powers everything from electrical grids to electronics and defense systems, underscoring the importance of reliable domestic supply. With growing demand, well-placed projects, and the Trump administration's emphasis on critical minerals, District Copper is well-positioned to secure America's future. Potential expansion in the U.S. may be next, and we'll be keeping a close eye on developments. To learn more about this strategically focused company, visit districtcoppercorp.com. Check the link in the description. A big thank you to District Copper Corp for sponsoring this video. Now back to the show. Politico published a story with text messages from young Republican clubs attempting to make the right look bad. They had an article titled, quote, "I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Thousands of private messages reveal young GOP leaders joking about gas chambers, slavery, and rape." So the ramifications of this are clear. They dropped their story on Charlie Kirk's birthday, the same day that President Trump at the White House held a ceremony honoring Charlie Kirk and presenting him with a posthumous Presidential Medal of Freedom. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was killed by a deranged leftist who thought, oh, Republicans are racist, they're sexist, they're bigoted. I'm going to murder this guy because I disagree with him. So what this does is it further makes the left, who, as we know, as we've established, are domestic terrorists, it makes them feel justified in their actions. As we saw, they were out there celebrating publicly. This is a private text message group chat. They're not hurting anybody. But publicly, the left was out there celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. They were stomping on prayer vigils across the country and attacking people just for saying, "Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk." One of these stories I reported at the Gateway Pundit, a billboard owner in Michigan put a "Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk" message on his billboard. He got a violent, threatening phone call from some deranged Karen. But what I want to point out is that whoever did this is such a freaking idiot. Like, they're trying to do this personal squabble, but this really hurts the entire party. If we want to win, seriously, we're going to air this dirty laundry out there for the Democrats to take advantage of, to use as ammo for the next election. And when I say use ammo, I'm talking both literally and figuratively, because now these young Republicans, most of them college age, maybe some a little older, but not extremely old, they now have targets on their back. As we saw with Charlie Kirk, for his pretty basic stances that follow conservative ideology, he got murdered, shot in the neck while speaking in front of thousands of people. Now, what's a leftist going to think when they see something like this? They're going to think, oh, these people are a threat to democracy. These people are a threat to people of color or transgender people or gay people. And again, it was a private group chat. They're not saying this stuff publicly. They are party leaders. Maybe it wasn't a great idea to have such a inflammatory group chat with the risk that these messages might be made public. But keep in mind, they're young. I'm 23 years old. I'm not saying I don't engage in this kind of banter with my friends, but if I did, I wouldn't want it being aired public. And it didn't just hurt this group. Some of them lost their jobs. Some of them lost job opportunities. Now they're going to be ostracized. They have a target on their back. But it also hurt the entire party, because while this happened, we have text messages that came out recently from this Democrat in Virginia, Jay Jones, actually calling for the murder of one of his political opponents. I think the messages said 2 shots in the head for one of his children. And he didn't just stop it there. He doubled down throughout the text messages. And he was asked to stop, I believe, by the person he was texting this to. But he kept it going and called him a Nazi, said he deserves this, would deserve a potential killing. And this is just how the left thinks. So I actually know, I don't know him too well, but I know one of the guys around my age, maybe a little younger, who's in this group chat. He doesn't strike me as a racist. He doesn't even strike me as edgy. I was surprised to learn that he was in this group chat because, I mean, he's just this normal conservative kid. But now it sucks for him because he's going to be ostracized. He's going to miss out on job opportunities. Hopefully his life isn't ruined over this, but it very well could be. Now, of course, the Republican Federation, they released a statement condemning the group chat. The statement reads, "We are appalled by the vile and inexcusable language revealed in the political article published today. Such behavior is disgraceful, unbecoming of any Republican, and stands in direct opposition to the values of our movement represents. Those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local young Republican organizations. We must hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity, respect, and professionalism. Leave it to the Republican Party to virtue signal. Leave it to them to apologize, not defend anybody that, whether they disagree with them or not. They're too scared. We're weak, the Republican Party. I don't even know if I consider myself a Republican anymore. I might just vote independent and probably vote for Republican presidential nominees in the future. But you look at what we're doing compared to what the Democrats are doing with their Virginia candidates. Abigail Spanberger, she is still endorsing Jay Jones. She is still campaigning with him. She's even making merchandise with his name on it. They don't care when stuff 10 times worse comes out in private text messages. But you do a private group chat with a few jokes, you're done to the Republican Party, which is just ridiculous. It's why we might not win the next election because of this, unfortunately. One thing I did appreciate, Vice President J.D. Vance, he came out and he said that he didn't support this, but he said he is not concerned about this college group chat that came out, and he's not going to bow down to the Democrats crying about it or even the Republicans crying about it. He actually posted a screenshot of the Jay Jones messages and highlighted that, drawing a stark contrast between what the jokes that these young Republicans were texting each other and what actual Democratic candidates for office were saying, where they're calling for conservatives' death. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining the Gateway Pundits DC Dive. Smash that like button.